The Immortal Game by Aesthetic Being. Chapter 8. My name is Twilight Sparkle. Esteem gently cast a spell to dry off his coat and mane as he rose out of his bath. He used his magic to open the curtains, and the white walls and floor of his room were bathed in the light of the early morning sun. He strode over to the mirror that dominated one wall as he opened his wardrobe and examined himself. A set of combs and picks, guided by his unicorn magic, began to pick their way through his dark red mane, styling into a sweeping wave that fell right and ended at a dozen curled points. A complex harness floated through the air to sit beside him, and he stepped through the various loops, fastening the straps through the metal rings until the harness hugged his body tightly. He fixed his collar, each side of which supported a strip of 5 yellow sunbursts with 5 circles. His symbol is rank. Lastly, 14 irregular shards of enchanted platinum iridium made their way from the top of his bedside to tuck themselves into various holding places on her harness. Dressed, he pulled a pocket watch off his harness and checked the time. 7:57. 3 minutes into breakfast. He took one more look into his own vibrant blue eyes before exiting his expansive chambers into one of the Canterlot Palace's luxurious carpeted hallways. Outside, his assistant was waiting for him. And Steve gave the grave pony a sharp nod as he saluted. "Good morning, cadet." The officer cadet fell into step beside him as he made his way down the hallway. "Good morning, sir," he said. "I have the intelligence report that you requested on the outer city by loyalists." Steve opened the door and stepped out into the morning air. He allowed himself a deep breath. I smiled at how refreshing it felt. It was a cloudless day in Canterlot, already warm despite the early hour. "Sooner than I expected," he remarked as he made their way down a white stairway and into the palace gardens. "I shall look forward to hearing it. Unfortunately, I am scheduled to have breakfast with Prince Blueblood in the sculpture garden in 2 minutes. I assume everything is in order?" "Of course, sir. The kids and staff are somewhat unsettled by your specific request, but I had something arranged. How do you expect the prince will react?" They rounded a corner into the view of Canterlot Maze. A small table attended by several palace staff members came into view. "I knew I could count on you to see that my order was followed, cadet. You continue to exhibit a commendable ability. As to how the prince will react," Esteem considered his cadet's question for a moment. "Hopefully, as exactly as I tell him to," he answered finally. The cadet gave a slight nod, gracefully accepting the compliment. Then, Esteem sat at the table as the palace staff unloaded their various trays of food and set them in place. When they were finished, he dismissed them, then checked his watch once more. 8:01. Blue Boy was late. Esteem looked back to where the cadet stood, waiting. "It would seem," he said loudly, "that our prince is running somewhat late." The cadet approached the table. "Prince Blueblood has a reputation among us nobles, sir. They say he has no interest in the Canterlot government, and he spends all of his time chasing mares." "I'm well aware of his reputation, cadet," Esteem said as he covered the food on the table to keep it warm. "It's why I chose him for this particular task in the first place." He looked around before giving a drawn-out sigh. "Still, this tardiness is rather excessive. You might as well give me a report." "Yes, sir." The cadet straightened. "As you know." "I don't care if I enjoy this fanfic a whole lot and it's one of my favorites. This still annoys me." He began. "The outer city was separated from the inner city, and the inner city by the palace, by a Billion's magical barrier roughly 1 month ago, when Nihilus was slain by Luna and her elite task force." Esteem did already know all of that, but he let the cadet continue nonetheless. "Traveling through the barrier requires the accompaniment of a unicorn who knows of a specific spell. The loyalist forces in the inner city have effectively been cut off from both the palace and the outside world. As a result, they have mostly gone underground and will be caught eventually." Esteem hated Empyrean's barrier. Its presence made him appear weak. The prince, despite being the second most powerful being in the world, was hiding from his enemies for fear of being destroyed the same way Nightmare Moon was. Nobody knew exactly how Nightmare Moon had been vanquished, but Esteem believed trickery to have been involved. 6 ordinary ponies could not have defeated an alicorn with over a millennium of power in a fair fight. The cadet continued. "The loyalists in the outer city, however, have been recently causing a great deal of commotion. Initially, we had thought that somehow the magical talents trapped within the inner city had broken through the barrier, but now the situation seems to be even worse than that. Intelligence confirms that 5 ponies responsible for defeating Nihilus are also responsible for most of the damage in the inner city in the past 2 weeks. It is safe to assume, then, that Luna is leading them. Princess Luna, Cadet, Esteem reminded him. The title is important. Of course, sir, my apologies. No, Esteem said. What do we know about these 5 ponies? Tell me everything. The cadet began to name the loyalists from memory. Applejack, he said, is a powerful earth pony. In addition to extreme strength and durability, we believe she has the power to spontaneously regenerate wounds. 6 days ago, she tore down a 2-story building in a fight with a unicorn puppet. She was... Well, that ought to be enough on Applejack, I think. Esteem interrupted him. Continue on to the next member of Luna's team. Cadet nodded. Fluttershy, he began again, is a Pegasus. But from our observations, he rarely takes to the skies, or field, or fights. This will suggest he's perhaps their commander, or a close advisor to Princess Luna. Rather than a soldier, we... Lot of size easily dismissed then. Continue. Again a nod. Pinkie Pie, he said. I was inclined to report, seeing as he was naming them in alphabetical order. As an earth pony who appears to be trained in some skilled fighting art. She uses a number of complex apparatus on the field, including grappling hooks, smoke grenades, and even firecrackers and confetti. We aren't exactly what her role is on the team, but... Continue. The cadet looked somewhat confused for a moment, but carried on nonetheless. Rainbow Dawes is a Pegasus, who appears to be the team's major air power. Despite the fact that airspace over the city is almost immediately inaccessible due to the large amount of puppets patrolling, she regularly takes to the skies and single-handedly defeats groups of Pegasus puppets. She knows expert knowledge when it comes to hoof-to-hoof combat. Continue. Rarity, the cadet said finally, is a unicorn possessed of interesting traits. She's able to cast a fragmented blade enchanted diamonds, and visit quite skillfully in the field. Intelligence indicates she has slain more puppets than any other team members, in part thanks to the nature of her weapon. Tell me more. Verdi appears to enjoy public appearances and engagements, so we do have a great deal of information to work with. Her blade is made of 14 fragments, suggesting a high mental ability. She worked as a designer and shopkeeper before Nihilus destroyed her mall. A designer, you say? What is your cutie mark? 3 gemstones, sir! Of course, Esteem said quietly. He looked up to see a white unicorn squarely making his way down to the palace steps. His mane was disheveled, and his coat unbrushed. Esteem doubted he would even wash himself. He checked his timepiece again, and told him that Blueblood was 8 minutes late. Prince Blueblood. Esteem nodded politely to his tardy guest. I'm glad you could make it. Please sit. He gestured to the other side of the table, then removed the metal covers from the food. Blueblood sat across from Esteem, then looked down at the food before him. He didn't greet the general, but rather grunted in disgust at his plate, recoiling slightly as though Esteem had offered him a plate of ground-up insects rather than a healthy breakfast. What is this? He pushed the plate from himself. This food may be fit for a soldier, but my royal lips will not touch peasant food. Blueblood looked at Esteem, clearly expecting something. Esteem did not expect the outburst in any way. Rather, he simply levitated his utensils and took a bite of his buttered asparagus. The spoiled prince continued. Boiled vegetables, squeezed fruit juice. I don't even know what this is, he said, levitating a gray slab of something in front of his face. Esteem delicately swallowed the asparagus before speaking, as etiquette dictated he do. If you don't know what it is, he said, how do you know it isn't fit for a prince? That particular morsel is my favorite. He sliced a piece off his own gray slab and placed it in his mouth. Oh, pause, the prince said in his haughty tones. If this is what you had me wake up 3 hours early for, I must say I'm disappointed. He got to leave. You misunderstand, your royal highness. I didn't invite you to breakfast so you could eat. I have a proposition for you. He took another bite. Please sit. He did not, in fact, offended by Blueblood's complete lack of manners. Whether it was Esteem's lack of affront at the prince's atrocious behavior, in fact, he did not scrape and bow at the prince's complaints. Blueblood seemed intrigued. He sat once more. Be quick about it, would you? He said contemptuously. I have things I'd rather be doing. Esteem held back a laugh at the prince's last statement. The thing Blueblood was like to do after the conversation was to return to bed and sleep past noon. He waited until he had finished his bite of food before speaking. I will transverse the barrier roughly a week to deal with the loyalists myself, he said. While I had intended to do this from the start, the erection of Pyrrhon's barrier put a damper on my plans. While it keeps the loyalists from getting out, it also greatly increases the difficulty in communicating with all forces. We expected the barrier would render the need for my presence on the field obsolete, but recently the conflict in the outer city has been escalating. I will take the field. Blueblood began to look impatient almost as soon as Superior began speaking.
Yes, but what does this have to do with me?
He said. Steam took another bite, slowly savoring both the meal and the look of irritation that came over Blueblood's face as he slowly chewed the food. The nobles within the Powerless barrier acquire quite a bit of weight within the city. The bloodlines have also produced a number of talented unicorns.
Such as myself,
Blueblood said, puffing out his chest. Indeed. Esteem did not allow his expression to change. Many of the nobles went over to the loyalist side during King Titan's reclamation. We believe that many would still, were it not for the barrier dividing them from the main loyalist group in the inner city. It is a barrier that ought to be kept in my absence, a task I can only trust to a capable pony, one who expresses ability. It would be best if they were of noble blood themselves, so as not to breach the status quo. Blueblood looked taken aback. He may have been stupid and egotistic, but Steam suspected that even he realized he was obviously not a pony possessing the qualities described.
Well, of course you came to me, he said, but you aren't a noble,
he accused. Steam could barely contain his disbelief. Surely Blueblood did not actually think that any pony believed the prince was worth something. Steam knew himself to be quite vain. His boon from Titan had, after all, been eternal youth, restoring him to a permanent age of 22 years. Blueblood's ego, however, seemed to be so preposterously large it blinded the pony to his obvious inferiority. He would be perfect. The sun rising in the sky, the picturesque green grass surrounding them, a deliciously prepared breakfast. Things were shaping up to be a perfect morning. Steam found himself looking forward to giving the prince a lesson. He had not educated another pony in almost 2 weeks. The cadet was so skilled at his job he rarely needed to be taught. He turned his attention back to the prince, swallowing another bite of his breakfast and wiping his mouth with a napkin, quietly before speaking again. I am, however, Sir General Esteem, Knight of the Natural Order, the High Prelate of King Titan, Redeemer of ponykind, the right hoof of Prince Empyrean. The hoof of God is more than fit to run things in the palace. Blueblood furrowed his brows as Esteem spoke. The expression did not look good on him. Esteem wondered if the prince was actually thinking for once.
I thought that Twilight was the right hoof of Empyrean,
he said after a time, looking confused. Esteem made a small noise. Prince Empyrean, he corrected. The title is important. He left out the fact that Blueblood had been failing to call him by his title all morning. In any case, the only other pony who served directly under Prince Empyrean was not Twilight Sparkle, but rather Nihilus Nix Not, an inversion of her created by its sliver of darkness and tasked with killing the ponies now on my doorstep. Steam took a small amount of pleasure in the look of confusion that came across Blueblood's face. He continued. Her failure was hardly surprising. She was a complete psychopath, a waste of the power and privilege granted her. He gave Blueblood a meaningful look. Completely pathetic and worthless. The insult was not lost on the confused prince. Be glad that she was not Twilight Sparkle, Celestia's pupil, the leader of a task force, is undoubtedly a master tactician and a war unicorn in addition to being a perfect 10 on the Corsair scale. Blueblood looked well and truly lost.
May I ask, Your Royal Highness,
Esteem continued, how you came to know the name Twilight Sparkle? Blueblood seemed to think for another moment. Its Empyrean enjoyed another bite of its breakfast and sip of orange juice. Finally, the prince spoke.
Celestia told me that I was to stay away from her and her friends after one of them humiliated me at last year's Grand Gallery Gala. I tried to track her down to teach her and show her a little respect for her betters, but Princess ordered me to stop.
Esteem sighed. Princess Celeste! He stopped as full gravity and what Blueblood said struck him. One of her friends. Tell me, what was her name? He asked suddenly. Blueblood thought for another moment.
Reality,
he said finally. Steam ran his tongue over one of his front teeth. It had, along with several of his other front teeth, been magically manipulated into an incisor. He had a surge of interest at the mention of her name. Is that so? He said, lifting another bite of his breakfast. Tell me about her. Blueblood seemed baffled at the request, but compiled nonetheless. Steam had relied on the prince's love of hearing his own voice. Sure enough, he delivered, launching into a story.
Well, he began, it was the day of the Grand Gallic Gala. I had, shall we say, warmed up for the celebration by having a tumble with some red-headed earth pony dits who actually thought I was going to take a commoner like her to the gala. I was coming out of the gardens when I saw this unicorn. I'm not sure what your Corsair scale measures, but this bear was a perfect 10 on the flying scale, if you get what I'm saying.
Esteem got what he was saying. The prince had not been subtle in any way, shape, or form.
I had to have her. She was absolutely gorgeous. You could tell just by looking at her. It was her first gala. I figured she'd be easy.
Casimir. The name of Esteem Blade was Casimir. In his mind, he was acutely aware each of the 14 razor-sharp shards of platinum iridium sitting on his person.
Imagine my surprise when I find her to be the rudest, most vulgar mare I have ever met. I had to prompt her to pay for our snacks and open a door for me, as if I ever pay for things. She expected me to step through a puddle when she had a perfectly assorted cloak on her.
The prince smirked.
I got her back, however. At the end of the night, I tossed her in front of a falling cake, and her appearance was simply ruined. Teach her to dress up like a lady when she's really just a peasant.
He said the last word with tense disgust. Esteem ran his tongue over his incisor once more.
Well then, Blue Eye continued, she shook the mess all over me like a dog, honestly, he said. If she wanted to be a dog, or should I say bitch, she should have just told me in the first place. I would have happily obliged her.
He gave a sleazy smile.
Know what I'm saying?
Esteem sat in silence for a moment, politely finishing up the food in his mouth. Then he laughed. It was a rich, deep laugh, filled with genuine entertainment. He looked over at the cadet, gesturing with a hoof. The cadet began to chuckle slightly as well. Lilith seemed confused at the sudden outburst, but eventually joined in, despite not knowing what he said was clever. The three of them continued to laugh together in the gardens for some time. Oh, Esteem said between bouts of laughter. I knew what you're saying. He stopped laughing suddenly, snapping his expression to that one of total seriousness. The cadet followed suit. You're saying, Esteem said dangerously. Blood's laughter died out in Soma's voice. But you tried to play my daughter. Again, Blueblood borrowed his frown and thought. Looked at Esteem. For the first time, seemed to fully take the unicorn in he had constantly been disrespecting since before he had even sat down. His pristine white coat, perfectly well-kept mane, done in sweeping curls, his vibrant blue eyes. Blueblood backed away from Rarity's father.
You can't be, he said incredulously. You're so...
Fawcett and Blueblood could close his mouth. Esteem mentally directed the left-pointed shard of Casimir to detach from its place in combat harness, blur through the air between them, a piece of unnaturally bright metal flashing in the morning sunlight before moving straight into Blueblood's open mouth. There, it stopped instantly before causing the prince any harm. He selected the point shard for its diminutive size so as to give it some maneuverability whilst inside the prince's mouth. He lamented himself that the prince probably did not understand how incredibly difficult the precision of such an attack was. He had thus displayed legendary mastery over his weapon, and only the cadet was able to appreciate it. The prince's mouth closed around the shard as its steam rotated along its side, so Blueblood would not be able to remove it. Blueblood's eyes widened in terror as he breathed heavily through his nostrils. Esteem gently floated the shard towards himself, and Blueblood was forced to move forward with it, lest it slice its way through his face. Young. Esteem provided with a smile. It wasn't the false mirth of his laugh, or the tiny smile he gave to be polite. It was a dull, lazy grin, sharpened teeth pressing slightly on his lower lip. Blueblood whimpered, You will forgive me, Prince Blueblood, for this rather dramatic assault on your person. I simply want you to shut up for once whilst I speak. He tilted his shard and drew it gently towards the ground. The result was that Blueblood bent for him. Ah, he said, regarding the prince. I see you finally remembered your manners. It is polite to bow before your superiors. Prince! He took another bite of his breakfast before continuing. The cadet refilled his orange juice. My daughter and I have not seen each other for almost a decade, you see. Celestia herself forbade me from ever seeing her again when she found out how I elected to raise her. She believed she had more say than I when it came to my own daughter's upbringing. I imagine she was reminded of the way her father, King Titan, raised her. He took a sip of his orange juice. The citrus drink seemed somehow fresher than it had been before. Forbidden to see my own daughter, he said. That doesn't seem very fair to you, does it, Prince Blueblood? He moved the point shard from left to right, from his place beneath its steam. Blueblood shook his head. Tears were running down his face, as a small trickle of blood that originated from the corner of his mouth. The prince was trying, and failing, to suppress his shaking. Nevertheless, Esteem continued, I think I have raised my daughter well. I taught her to protect herself, you see. I did not shield my daughter from the world, but rather taught her to shield herself. And look what she has done so far. She helped to defeat Nightmare Moon. She helped to defeat Discord. She helped to defeat Nihilus. She protected herself from you when I was not there to do so for her. He telekinetically moved the table and all of its contents to the side, so as to clear the space between himself and Blueblood. Then he drew the prince upward with Carcemir's point shard. I made her strong. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. I made her superior. He started slightly as his favorite word left his lips. Still. He looked down at the prince. I neglected many of my duties as a father. Prince Blueblood looked up to Esteem, eyes pleading. Esteem looked down in the direction of the city. Rarity's coming home to me, he said softly. He turned back to Blueblood. And I feel that since she is setting such a good example as a daughter, I must strive to be the best father I can be. He leaned down. Blueblood was covered with sweat, his uncontrollable shaking causing him to cut his mouth on the point shard. Esteem could sense, through his magical link with the shard, the blood around the blade. He could almost taste it. What was it you said about my daughter? You wanted to ride her like the peasant bitch she is? Blueblood tried to talk, despite being unable to open his mouth, unless the shard cut into the back of his throat. The result was a desperate, muffled cry. Esteem stood up straight. I'm not exactly sure what punishment is appropriate, he mused. He drew the leftmost bridge shard off the combat harness. When Carceria was assembled, the bridge served no purpose but to fit with the point, core, and edge pieces, and comprise the blade's fuller. Despite its intended position in the hole, however, it was still made of extremely sharp edges, and points for when he needed to use the shards as his individual weapons. Being a bridge shard, it was the longest and thinnest piece of his blade. Esteem had selected it for that reason. He looked at his point shard, so Blueblood was forced to tilt his head back. Then slowly leveled the bridge shard so it pointed directly to Blueblood's pupil. I could gouge out one of your eyes, he said to himself thoughtfully. Blueblood was only able to draw his head away so far from the shard before it cut the inside of his mouth even more. Blood ran down the front of his face. Yes. It seemed to continue to speak as though they were having a casual conversation over breakfast. I rather like the idea of disfigurement. It occurs to hesitate in the other nobles, so they think to oppose me, as so many of you already have. But is a single eye enough? I wonder, what would Rarity want? I know her better than I, Prince Blueblood, so tell me, would my daughter simply take more than your eye? Blueblood was unable to move his head from the point shard in his mouth, and was only to shake his head by millimeters. Esteem moved the point shard up and down. A fresh shower of tears ran down Blueblood's face as he was forced to nod. I see. I commend your honesty, your highness. Were I in your situation, I would have lied, especially considering its physical beauty at stake. Ah well, he sighed as Blueblood made another pitiful noise. I suppose I could also slit your tongue. He rubbed his chin with a hoof, or sever your ears, or burn away your mane. Castration seems to fit the offense nicely. Blueblood pale, shivering grew violent. More blood dribbled out of his mouth as he made a pathetic whinny. Stay still, Esteem said suddenly. Open your mouth, but do not speak. He rotated the shard again, as Blueblood did commanded. He pulled the point shard, dripping with blood and saliva, out of the prince's mouth. Blueblood immediately turned and began to run. Esteem seized both of Carasamir's shards and grabbed the pillars with telekinesis. He dragged them back as he gently moved the breakfast table back into place with another bit of magic. forcefully turned Blue Blood's head so the prince faced him. What kind of an idiot fool, he said levelly, turns his back to an opponent and then does not use the spell that would protect him from said opponent's telekinesis? He took a sip of his orange juice, aware that Blue Blood was suffocating under the iron grip of his mind. When I release you, you will stay or be quiet. He dropped the prince. Blue Blood made no attempt to run, did not say a word. So, even one as thick as you can be taught, Esteem observed coolly. Now sit down and eat your breakfast while I explain to you some crucial information. Blue Blood's breathing was uneven, and he was still shaking. The front of his face covered in blood and tears and spit. One side of him was dirty, where Esteem had dragged him across the ground. He sat, never meeting Esteem's eyes, and began to forcefully swallow pieces of asparagus. You seem to be under the impression, Blue Blood, that your royal blood makes you special, that you have an inborn amount of privilege and superiority. That is false. Blue Blood continued to eat mechanically, staring down at his plate. Esteem carried on. You think I am a Prince Imperium's right hoof because it is my birthright? Do you think that King Titan has the power to rule the world because he is king? It is the other way around. King Titan is king because he has the power to rule the world, because he has no equal. Power is privilege, Prince. The nobles disagree. They can stand a general who appears noble, follows proper etiquette. But if I tell them that the palace is being left in charge of a cadet, they will grow even more restless than they already are. It is a small problem, with an easy solution. I will grant you power over the palace when I leave. You will be a figurehead, however, and the cadet will ensure that things run smoothly in my stead. I choose you because I know that you are so inept, so incapable, that even if you had the moxie to use your newfound legislative powers against me, you will not be able to. You are simply too stupid, so you ought to do exactly as the cadet tells you, and the nobility will not accept your appointment. Do you understand? Blue Blood nodded, still shivering. He looked at his plate, which was empty for a single piece of food. He prodded it gently with his fork. It's chicken breast. Esteem said simply. Blue Blood gave him a look of absolute horror. I figured it was emphasized not just one, but both points I am trying to make here today. I needed to be absolutely certain you understood, and you have a reputation for being rather thick, Your Highness. Esteem leaned over to the table and gave her another smile. I can, should I choose to do so, slaughter and eat any animal I wish. I do not do this for fun, or even because I like the taste. I do it because I can. There's nothing to make one feel superior, quite like eating meat, Your Highness. There's nothing wrong about eating meat, just as there's nothing right about it. You think that Celestia's all rules depend on what's morally acceptable? Celestia is dead. Titan chooses what is right and wrong now. He does not do so because of his divine right, but only because there is not a force on this world capable of opposing him. The ultimate authority, the only true authority, is power. That is the first lesson. The second lesson stems naturally from the first. I am much more powerful than you. When I return from the field, Casimir washed in my blood of my enemies, I will decide whether or not to revoke your punishment based on your performance. This means you do exactly as the cadet and I tell you. Should you require it, you ought to nod along, surely as if my blade was still in your mouth. To start, you're going to eat your chicken. Esteem finished, giving his guest an expectant look. Blue Blood winced, then slowly cut a piece of the meat. He grimaced as the chicken touched his bloody tongue, then chewed it before giving a thick swallow. How does it taste? Esteem asked the prince with another smile. Blue Blood looked as though he was holding back vomit. Delicious, he said hoarsely. I am glad we can come to an understanding. Esteem rose, then turned to Cadet. See to it that our prince finishes his breakfast. The cadet nodded. Yes, sir. With any luck, you will prove to me that you are worthy of remaining in the pony gene pool. Esteem turned towards the steps leading back up to the palace. Or I will not have to forcibly remove you from it. Have a good morning, Your Highness. Having enjoyed an excellent breakfast, Esteem set off for Imperium's throne room, not a hair out of place. A unicorn puppet met Esteem outside the wide double doors that led to the Court of the Sun. It approached Esteem with an unusual amount of autonomy, leaving its partner puppet to guard the doors alone. When it reached the general, It spoke in a metallic, hollow voice, shared by all of Terra's mindless soldiers. General Esteem, it said, my name is Puppet. I am to accompany you to the Court of the Sun, by orders of King Titan. Esteem gave the puppet a once-over. I see, he said as he turned towards the doors. Should the king be speaking with his son? Yes. Esteem raised an eyebrow. It was certainly shaping up to be an interesting morning. He opened the doors with a magical thought as they strode unannounced into Empyrean's court. Prince Empyrean did not look much like the deity who had controlled the sun before him. His coat was still white, and his being flowing with mass, multi-hued energy Celestia possessed. He wore a similar set of royal garments, and a tiny gold crown rested upon his head. Where Celestia carried regal bearing, however, Empyrean's manner was that of a petulant child. He sprawled comfortably across the cushion in the center of the room, rather than sitting with the posture that his station demanded. He looked bored. Since citizens were not actually to come to court due to Empyrean's barrier, the only ponies in the large lit chamber were the nobles who resided within the palace. There were perhaps a dozen of them, all trying to gain power by associating with the new prince, no doubt. The door closed loudly behind him, and every pony in the room turned to look at him, their conversations coming to a halt. Esteem took the small group of noble ponies in a single, disdainful sweep of his eyes. Get out, he said to the silent nobles. Since Empyrean spent most of his time indoors, socializing with the noblemen and struggling to control his godlike powers, Esteem had been, for the most part, ruling Camelot for over a month. While he was not harsh or cruel, and did not go out of his way to make himself feared, there was not a pony in the palace who did not know exactly who he was. He heard, through his subordinates, the rumors ponies said about him. Esteem killed Twilight Sparkle, Celestia's favorite pupil, some said. Esteem was the one who released Titan. Esteem eats meat. Esteem eats pony meat. Esteem killed 40 ponies alone on the night of Titan's ascension, then licked their blood from his blade. Esteem is a 40-year-old stallion, but somehow appears 20. Esteem killed a griffin when he was 9. All of them were somewhat true, and as Esteem looked at the nobles standing in the court of the sun, he could see their eyes flash with uncertainty, and knew they were likely recalling the rumors. When Empyrean told them not to stay, they left, shuffling out of the way quickly out the smaller doors lining the sides of the court. It was only after they had left that Empyrean dipped his head and bent his legs, bowing to the prince. He was only going through the motions, however. He neither loved nor respected Titan's whelp.
Oh, why did you tell them to send them away? Empyrean whined as Esteem approached. Lord Goldsworthy was telling me a story. It was about a silly filly who... I will be leaving the palace this afternoon, your highness, Esteem simply. At this, Empyrean's eyes widened, and mouth hung open limply. You can't, he said. What if they come for me? Esteem resisted the urge to spit. Why, Prince, Luna and the 5 are safely on the other side of the 2 impossible barriers. You have almost half of the sum total of all our puppets here to protect you at the palace. And you have more than the power of all of them combined. You can't know that! Empyrean snapped impetuously. He sit down on his enormous cushion. They defeated Nightmare Moon, and she was stronger than Celeste. He stopped in saying her name, working his mouth as though he almost wanted to swear. Me, he finished. As Steve rang his tongue over a sharp tooth. I still cannot reach you, your highness. I intend to take to the field and cross the remaining rebels, the 5 included. I will not be taking many of the puppets with me. We already have more than 1,000 in the field. My 2 pony soldiers not included. I will defeat Celestia's elite. Then you will need not worry. But why not just stay here? Empyrean stomped a hoof on the ground, and Marion might expect from a 5-year-old. They'll all give up or die of old age eventually. Once again, its team had to restrain his frustration. Because I need to make war, my friends, just as Titan needs to rule. It is my purpose. I cannot keep the sun running smoothly for much longer while it's under your barrier. The barrier must come down soon, and you will not do that until the lawyers are crossed. So I've taken it upon myself to trust the loyalists. Empyrean's face twisted into a mix of a pout and a scowl, and he stood. No! He said, sounding more like a colt throwing a temper tantrum than a god. I forbid you to leave the palace. The risk to my person is too great. His team barely kept his temper under control. Titan's little whelp could not keep him from his eldest daughter. Rarely did Empyrean exercise his authority as Titan's only son. Esteem simply needed to be firm. He gritted his teeth.
Why, Prince, the city could barely function under your barrier as things are. If it stays up any longer, Canterlot will collapse. The people will starve.
Then let them, Empyrean shouted. I am their god, and they'll starve at my behest. You'll stay here, Esteem, and protect me.
Before Esteem could come up with a reply to Empyrean's childish declaration, he heard the slap of a pony hitting the floor behind him. He turned to see that the unicorn puppet, who had accompanied him into the court of the sun, fallen to the ground and was shaking violently as seizures racked his body. As he watched, it spoke, but not in the howl voice of the puppet. I am assuming control. It was a fluid, resonating voice that forced itself into Esteem's mind, demanding his attention in an unsettling manner. It was the voice of their god. As he watched, the unicorn's eyes shot open, their usual red replaced with a blazing white. A ripple of incandescent energy traveled down the puppet's mane, and burst into a flowing mass of white ether. The puppet stood, and regarded the two occupants of the room with an intelligent, dispassionate gaze. On his flank burned the ghostly imprint of a simple white circle. Esteem already had his muzzle pressed to the floor in the court. His bow was not the mocking gesture he had used for Blue Blood, or the controlled observance of etiquette he had given to Prince Empyrean, but rather a genuine act of obedience. Titan deserved his respect. Behind him, he knew Empyrean was deciding the same. You may rise, Titan said simply. He then looked at his son with an unreadable expression. Were I here in my true form, Empyrean, I would cause you pain. The plant flinched. Father, Titan waved a hoof, and Empyrean flinched again, shutting his mouth. The king continued. A month has passed since Nihilus died, and you have rented your barrier, Empyrean. Her death did not bother me, as you had already served a purpose in helping us create you. The barrier did not upset me either. You have every right to protect yourself from Celestia's elite. Even I do not yet know how to defeat a Nightmare Moon. An answer I am certain will come to us in time. He slowly crossed the distance between himself and Sun, drawing each step out to an agonizing pace. My displeasure comes from the fact you have failed in your purpose. Ponykind is supposed to fear you, my son. Yet they fight terrorist puppets in the streets of Canterlot, your seat of power. If you insist on not leaving the palace to smite them yourself, then you will allow Charles' team to do it for you. Have I made myself clear? Empyrean bowed once more. Yes, father, but... Again, Titan silenced him with a raised hoof. Celestia managed your task masterfully. She made Ponykind respect her as a ruler and love her as a princess. She manipulated them into believing they ruled themselves, even as they called her God. She made them brand their enemies as their own, and even thanked her for destroying them. Even now they still love her and rebel. I do not expect you to do as Celestia did, but you will at least keep order. Chaos and discord among Ponykind draws attention I would rather remain elsewhere. Esteem shrank away from the much smaller pony and approached him. I will do better, father, he promised. You will, Titan said simply. I am currently at the heart of the Everfree Forest. It's taking more time than expected to undo the damage Celestia did to this world over the course of 1,000 years. Soon, however, the natural order will be restored. Ensure that Canterlot is in order when that happens. Ensure that Ponykind is ready to accept its place, or I'll once again command terror to strike them down. Empyrean opened his mouth to speak. Titan once again silenced him with a raised hoof. The king could make the gesture seem very dramatic, Esteem observed. His fellows a king with 3,000 years of practice. Leave us, Titan said. Esteem realized that the king had been speaking to Empyrean, not himself. What would be his king near him, the Empyrean couldn't hear. The prince gave an indignant pout, flew over them, and left by way of main doors. General. The possessed puppet turned to face Esteem, and he bowed. You are not to completely destroy the Loyalists, he said. Esteem raised his eyebrow, bewildered. Your Majesty. Certainly. It is my wish that you destroy the remaining members of Celestia's task force. You will also kill many of their members and aid in capturing Luna. But you will allow several of its leaders to escape and continue fighting for their cause. Enough of them must die to Empyrean abolish its barrier, but it was for a small amount of rebels to remain in Canterlot at all kinds. If I ask, my king, Empyrean is an incompetent brat, Titan said, the words evenly, never putting any feeling behind them. He acts like a spoiled infant. He lacks the decisiveness and temperament down ruler requires. He erects a ridiculous barrier rather than crushing the rebel forces himself. He is not worthy of the power I have given him. Celestia's power. Titan turned and strode to the many tall windows that light the corner of the sun. He has the mind of a child now, but as he grows older he will mature. There will be rebels in the city when he does, and I will teach him how to crush them. It will take many years, and put strain on ponykind. Strain. Thousands of ponies would starve, if not tens of thousands. The economy would collapse. Esteem realized that Titan would gladly allow these things to happen in order to properly raise his son. He would do the same for his daughters, after all. In the end, however, Empyrean will grow up during a time of war. He'll learn to keep ponykind in check, and ponykind will fear him. Those are their places in the order. Steen marveled at the simple elegance of Titan's plan. The majority of ponykind's sympathies might lie with the Loyalists at present, but in a decade, would ponykind support the Loyalists after 10 years of conflict, fighting for their princesses that were obviously not coming back? They would likely welcome an end to the fighting. They would worship Empyrean for delivering them from war. Empyrean would grow up learning to handle dissonant and rebellious people. A fine decision, Your Majesty. Titan ignored the praise. The last matter I wish to speak with you is Luna, General. She is inside the city, he said simply. Esteem had no idea how Titan got this information. We suspected this once when her five began to attack our forces in the outer city, but we weren't certain. You are a general now, General. This form is fragile. It takes a great deal of power to sustain. I will, however, be able to defeat my weakest daughter without having to leave Everfree. Should you encounter Luna on the battlefield, you will leave her to me. Your task is to kill the five. The king did not give his team the chance to respond. He simply fans into the cloud of dark smoke that all puppets produced upon death. Kill the five, Titan had said. All but one, Your Majesty. Dear Diary, tonight I went with a gang to see Starswell's comet. Only comes once every 34 years. Wasn't interesting as a meteor shower, but we still had a blast. Even if I didn't learn anything about friendship in the process. I don't spend time with them just to learn lessons for the princess. I spend time with them because they're my friends. Actually, that sounds like it could be a lesson. Maybe I should write to the princess. But then what if she doesn't think it's good enough and accuses me of not committing to my studies? She could stop thinking I'm a most faithful student. I just be Twilight Sparkle or student. Or she could abandon me altogether, and I'll have to find another way of life and change my name outside and go into hiding. I end up working at Pony Jones to get by. A unicorn named Betty who dies her maid because he's secretly in exile. Best not to send her a letter about it. But when she finds out I didn't send her a letter, thinks that the one of my time, I could hurt her feelings so much that she... Right, just read that last paragraph out loud. I'll just tell her about the meteor shower tomorrow. Which reminds me, tomorrow I'll be in Camelot to spend the night with both princesses. Be ready for an interesting diary entry then. Twilight Sparkle. Twilight sat at the center of one of the dining hall's long trestle tables. She was attended to by 4 of the palace guards, all of whom were unicorns. Aside from the guards and Spike, who was fast asleep on the table beside her, the large hallway was empty. She smiled as the sleeping dragon blew a bubble of his own spit, then steeled her plate as it burst. I feel bad making the 4 of you just stand around and watch me eat, she said to the palace guards.
And if shining armor were here...
I know my way around the palace. I really don't need an escort. No, I don't like having you around, she said hastily. It's just that I'm sure you must be a little bored. She piled 14 peas onto her spoon, then happily put the food in her mouth. She hadn't eaten since morning.
A high-profile pony such as yourself is being given an escort. It's a tradition, Miss Sparkle,
one of the guards said breezily.
Besides, a soldier should always delight in doing his duty.
Twilight flushed at being called a high-profile pony. Me? She said. A justice student. You can still do your duty sitting down. You must be tired sitting around. The guard who had spoken approached and sat. The other guards gave him looks and said he was breaking some secret rule. Twilight noticed that under his samurai armor, he had like a complex harness. Twilight swiftly swallowed her peas. Is that a blade harness? She argued, as with a strange sense of curiosity. I've read about those. Are you a blade caster? The pony sat across from her. Cultivated steam, at your service. He gave a mini bow. Twilight scooped up a spoonful of peas. She counted 13, so she added a pea to her spoon before taking a bite. While she did this, the captain removed his helmet and shook out a luxurious red mane. Something about the accent gave Twilight a memory. Have I met you before? He looked familiar. Twilight wasn't sure about Captain Steam she found interesting. She was Definitely something about him he couldn't quite place, however. Esteem stood and unfastened his cuirass with telekinesis. It clattered to the floor before him, leaving his front bare. I imagined that I would, he said, giving her a tiny smile. I believe you knew my daughter, Rarity. Twilight tilted her head slightly, confused. Beside her, Spike continued to speak. Rarity, she said, but her parents... I know nothing about whatever couple took them in almost 10 years ago, Esteem interrupted briskly, but I assure you, Miss Sparkle, that I am both Rarity and Allure's father. He continued to remove pieces of his armor, letting them fall to the floor unceremoniously. The other 3 guards were exchanging glances. Twilight examined the captain closely. He did have a striking resemblance to Rarity. Rarity doesn't have a sister named Allure, she said slowly. She started to get a bad feeling about the captain. Where were Celestia and Luna? Esteem regarded her for a moment. She does have a sister, though, yes. Unicorn, white mane, white coat, mane of lavender carnation. Sweetie Belle, Twilight whispered. Esteem nodded once, then dropped another plate of armor to the ground. Well, her mother wanted to name her, he said simply. That is, before I had her killed. Captain! One of the guards exclaimed, and they began to move forward to the center of the room. The unease they had been feeling intensified to real fear. Twilight stood and began to back away. Who are you? The last piece of his steam armor fell to the floor with a clang. He wore only his harness, upon which sat several sharpened blades of unknown metal, platinum and radium. The logical part of Twilight's brain thought entirely. The only metal that's both hard and conductive to enchantments. I told you, he said, are you Captain Esteem, Redeemer of Ponykind, and father to Rarity and Sweetie Belle? The 3 other guards now surrounded Esteem. Captain! One of them said in a tone that was half warning, half pleading. Esteem raised a hoof. The guard started talking immediately as out of habit. I intend to cause harm to your charge, soldiers, he said lightly. Act!
Captain, is this some kind of test? A joke? This is not.
Twilight watched in horror as the soldier's neck suddenly exploded, blood flashing outward as a piece of Esteem's blade tore through the stallion's throat. It continued along its trajectory, bursting through the other end of the guard's neck and trailing blood through the air. Before Esteem had even turned to face the other guards, a long thin piece of his blade thrust its way out into the other of the unicorn's eye. Esteem had turned around before the body even struck the floor, facing the only remaining guard. The last guard looked down at his fallen comrades, then backed up to his captain with disbelief. His eyes flashed a mixture of rage and terror. His horn began to glow as he readied a spell. Esteem raised a single eyebrow, and the shard that he had slain the first guard whipped across the guard's throat, so quickly he sent the other unicorn flying. A spray of blood struck Twilight, the fluid splattering across her face and the front of her body. Twilight's mind could barely register what was happening. Seeing flints at the blood, legs began to shake. A deep primal terror welled up in the pit of her stomach. She had never seen a pony die before. She had certainly never seen any pony killed before. She knew she was in danger. She just didn't know what to do. She silently begged for Celestia to come for her. It had taken Esteem seconds to murder all the guards. Twilight watched in horror as the captain lowered 3 more shards to surround Spike, slid the entire ordeal. She allowed a squeak sound that was halfway behind a yelp and a squeak. The captain ignored her, leaning down to speak softly to the final guard as he lay on the floor, gurgling and spitting as he died. No, soldier, he said quietly, and start the test. He stood and faced Twilight. If you teleport or attempt any magic of any kind, I will kill your dragon! Twilight tried to move her legs, but he didn't respond. She managed to nod weakly as she made a small whimpering noise. Please, she thought. Celestia?
Any noise you will make will not be audible outside this room,
Esteem said quietly.
Relinquish the hold on your body.
Twilight shut her eyes. Unicorns could move anything with their telekinesis, including other ponies. Unicorn could only move something that the other unicorn did not have control of, however. While it was extremely rude to grab another pony in most cases, almost every unicorn still kept themselves under a spell that made them immune to other unicorns' manipulation. It was an effortless spell after all.
The dragon means as much to me as the gods did, Miss Sparkle. You'll have to count to 3.
Celestia, where are you? Esteem tilted his head to regard her with a curious expression.
Do not count on your god to save you. The only pony you can count on for protection is yourself. 2!
Twilight didn't know what Esteem was going to do to her, but he simply wanted to kill her. He could have used his blade. Spike was going to die unless he gave complete control of her body to a murderer. Celestia, please! She looked at the captain, then to Spike, still sleeping soundly on the table. You're nothing like her, she said as she disabled the spell. Immediately she was pinned back down to the ground beneath her. She heard hoof steps, as steam appeared above her. She found she could still feel her mate. Understood, Miss Sparkle. Steam carried on, so they were talking over dinner. This is nothing personal. I am simply following orders. Although, he produced a black sliver, much tinier than any parts of the blade. It glared as he moved to the floor nearby. A soldier should delight in following orders. Twilight knew nobody could hear, but she screamed anyway. Celestia! Luna! Celestia! Steam continued to move the sliver, bringing it directly above her face. Mom! Dad! The sliver stopped directly above her right eye. Twilight tried to recoil from it. Steam telekinetically forced her head upward, pry her eyelid open. Are you going to kill me? He shook his head. No. Unfortunately, you should survive the process. Goodbye, Twilight Sparkle. The sliver descended. Dear Twilight's diary, aren't you cute? Maybe I have a use for all these saccharine writings if I didn't have access to all of Twilight's memories. But I do. Tomorrow, I'm going to South Cloudsdale and hopefully come one step closer to godhood. Be ready for an interesting diary entry then. How disgusting. I'm going to laugh as I feed this to Rainbow Dash and Twilight screams. The racket she's giving me now is any indication her agony will be quite entertaining. I'm surprised that after being with me a week, you're still sane, kiddo. And Twilight woke up screaming. She felt a weight on her body and thrashed around, desperately trying to push whatever it was away from her. Her eyes shot open, but something was covering her face, inhibiting her vision. As she flaited her forelegs, she realized the slight weight was only a blanket. She pushed herself over her head. She grabbed the fabric and pulled, tearing the blanket away from herself. She didn't spend much time taking in the room around her. Instead, immediately rolling herself out of the bed, she hit the floor, gasping for breath. She then pushed herself across the room on her hind legs, coming to rest against the bookshelf that was beside the bed. Her head darted left and right. She took in her surroundings. She was alone, in the library. Alone. The surge of relief many felt as he'd been through was given a full body massage. All of her muscles relaxed. Twilight was in control again. Rainbow Dash had been freed from the nightmare. Fireside was alive. All of her friends were alive. So why weren't they there with her? She remembered the fortress crumbling under her as she held the power of the elements of harmony. Then it collapsed. Would Fireside and Rainbow Dash been strong enough to carry them all to safety? Obviously, some pony had brought Twilight back down, so the others were likely safe. She couldn't have been unconscious for long. Why was no pony with her? She closed her eyes and a flurry of much darker memories came to her. She remembered screaming in protest as Rainbow Dash writhed in agony on the ground before her, engulfed in dark magic. Now she looked like Twilight then. She used Dash's friendship to infect the Pegasus with a nightmare, then destroy her. She remembered tearing Carousel Boutique apart, blurring it with only a thought. Sleep Bell been inside? And Nihilus killed Rarity's younger sister? She recalled the joy that the parasite felt at the thought, pure loathing she had felt at the sight of Rarity herself. All the while, Twilight was powerless to stop her. She remembered being forced to look into Fireside's eyes, her wide, soft, innocent eyes, as Nihilus ordered Rainbow Dash to murder her. Twilight had been able to do nothing. The plans she'd come up with to keep her friends alive had failed. Had Fireside not possessed their pony magic, they all would have died. Nihilus had done worse than trying to kill them. She'd done to make them suffer, all because they were her best friends. All because Twilight had not been able to stop her. All because Twilight had let herself become corrupted in the first place. Why would any pony want to be by her side when she woke up? Slowly, Twilight unsteadily pushed herself to her feet. She hadn't used her body in over a week. Nihilus had been doing all for them. Tested her legs, each of them lifting off the ground before trying slowly in a circle. She focused, shaping and weaving her unicorn magic into a spell. She released it, and told her there was no trace of foreign magic about her. Nihilus was gone. She was free. She examined herself, knowing with relief her coat and mane had returned to their normal colors. Lastly, she conjured a mirror and checked the color of her eyes. They were both purple. She was still the element of magic, and she had a responsibility. She would make things right again. She would find Luna and her former friends. They would rescue Princess Celestia, defeat King Titan. For the first time in TV's program, she spoke, "My name." Her voice came out hoarse, quiet for disuse. She cleared her throat. She stood straight, meeting her own gaze in the mirror before finishing. "It's Twilight Sparkle."